Hello, my friends. I've got Tara Horstmeyer joining me on the show today. She says y'all a lot. Why? It's because she's authentic. She's a very real and honest person, and that's something I've always loved about her since meeting her on LinkedIn over a year ago. She's the founder of Happy Words. You can find her at happywordscell.com. She's doing this through ghostwriting for major companies and executives. She does workshops. She just brings great services to the world to translate really important thoughts and messages in powerful, authentic, emotional ways. If you follow her on LinkedIn, and I advise that you do, check her out and you'll understand how she does this. It's very real and it makes a difference, whether it's a personal brand or whether it's for a company. Take this stuff seriously. In our conversation today, we talk about three big things. One is how words are at the core of the impact you seek to make. And you need to find ways to extract in specific language all the noise that's going through your head into specific words, because words start ideas. Ideas create action. Secondly, we talk about thinking about life in terms of seasons, and that we have to ebb and flow through spring, summer, fall, and winter. And we can't always go hard at certain things. We have to adjust to different needs in life and just understand your circumstances and adjust accordingly. And lastly, I love this idea, is being the ghostwriter of your own life. Powerful. I'll wait for you to unpack that with us as we go. And lastly, before we get started, if you get value with Uncage Yourself, I'd appreciate if you jumped on over to Apple Podcasts and or Spotify and left a quick, honest written review on what you get out of it. It means a lot, helps us get the message into other people's hands and ears, all of that. All right, enjoy this session with Tara. Growing up, society taught you to follow the script by choosing a career path and climbing the ladder. But for many people, this promise falls flat. Work suffocates them and life becomes painful. Here, you're trapped in what I call the corporate cage. Fortunately, there's a way out. You can take control of your corporate job and unlock a life of freedom. I call this living uncaged. Hi, this is your host, Matt Doan. I'm a coach, creator, and entrepreneur. Uncaging people is my mission because it's been my exact life journey. This show provides you the stories, principles, and tactics to make it happen. Welcome to Uncage Yourself. Hello, Tara. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Matt. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so pumped to have you. I've been admiring your work, and our back and forth over the last year or so has just been so inspiring to me. I want to bring that to the audience here today. So to get us really going here, you are known for your words. Your words are so real and so raw. They seem to penetrate the soul. That's what it feels like when I'm reading what you put out. And clearly a lot of other people feel that way too. So you're dominating on LinkedIn, just being yourself. And being yourself is the most beautiful thing we can be, right? But tell us, how are you able to resonate so deeply with others through your words? Where did that come from?
Well, I love that question because I truly think it's something that it's a skill that we can learn. Some people have it naturally. So for me, it really was the awesome opportunity of not really having years and years knowing what LinkedIn was. You know, I didn't grow up with it, so to speak, in the corporate world. I never used it in previous roles. I just thought it's there. It's a, place to hold your resume, potentially connect with your coworkers, get some emails from time to time, and I left it alone for 13 years. So when I came back to LinkedIn in 2020, not only I think had the platform grown up, but I grew up. And at that time, it's funny how I really looked at any kind of writing and any kind of words as basically a deprogramming of the previous me in my editor life and reprogramming of bringing the real me in anything I wrote. And so I didn't realize that, hey, a lot of people write, maybe not so I'm going to say poetically, maybe not so out there or, had a harder time just being themselves or being authentic in what they put. And for me, it was just, hey, if I'm going to be here, or honestly, if I'm going to do anything at this point in my life, it's going to be as close to who I am in that moment and in the season as I possibly can. So I don't know if it's as much the words I choose, or if it's really just the heart that I bring, that I truly believe that if we're going to put words out, then hopefully they're going to connect over perfect. So that's kind of my thing.
I think you and I have talked before about writing when the emotion is hot and making sure that you're able to convey in words what you're feeling, because the reader feels that, right? And in the ghostwriting world, just generally in digital marketing, we need the ability to tap into emotion to affect the hearts and minds of people, right? Is there anything you do to get into the right emotional state, or is it just kind of like when you feel it, you write? How does that work for you?
Yeah. So everybody laughs at my process because my process really isn't to have a strict process, because I personally am like a lot of people where I can be really hot and I can be really cold. So I like to write exactly in the mood when inspiration strikes, but I do have a process that I don't just let inspiration strike. I always make sure that I carry that inspiration to its fullest capacity. So, and really what that means is, yes, right when something strikes, but a lot of time what I've seen in working even with writing and coaching is a lot of people will stop. They'll get stuck at a hook, or they'll try to go back and say, oh, wait, I should add this. They'll become an editor too quickly. And so what I've really learned how to do in my process is write completely uncaged, untamed, and just let it flow out like crazy. And you may end up going in 50 directions. And in those hot moments, what I have found is there's usually 5 or 6 thoughts that actually flow together in that. And then when I'm in a cooler state, when, the emotions are out, and then I'll come back and I'll look at it logically, and I'll be able to bring my editor mind, break it up into, okay, I only really want to have one point. If I'm going to put something out, what is the one point? And what I'll find is in those heated, hot emotional moments, you probably have a ton more available content, more available points that you're able to pull out when you can come back and visit it in a cooler, more calm editor state. So those are kind of how I make sense of the chaos that exists in those really emotional, hot writing moments where you are just feeling yourself, you're feeling what you're, going through, you're getting to a point. But what I found is you probably have a lot more points in there. So follow that passion fully through, let everything that you're thinking come out, whether in a voice note, writing, whatever your method is, and then wait a bit, come back when you're cooler, and then start to make sense of, the fire.
Mm-hmm. It's like the fundamentals of flow state. You don't want to do things intentionally that disrupt that flow. For example, oh, I want a statistic here. Let me go find that statistic right now. But in parentheses, say insert statistic here. Or don't get to your copy editor mode immediately where you're trying to write for a formatting view, but you just got to get it out and then come back almost with a different hat on to get it to the next stage.
Yes, that's brilliant. What I say a lot of times is make sure you have something to say before you worry about how to say it. So that will come back in almost a different way. Sometimes, we'll all surprise ourselves with like, whoa, where did that, phrase come from or something? Just keep letting it go. Like you were saying, just let it flow. And then you can come back and, clean things up, clarify things, edit things, look at things maybe a little bit differently. Maybe you'll even come back and be like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? You're like your own therapist. You're like, that was crazy. I'm not going to put that together. But most of the time, as long as we do let it follow through and really let it almost do its work on us, then we are so much more able to, put it in a way that actually is format that makes sense, that flows, all of that. But if you do it in the moment, I find that boom, it just crushes the mojo and it's not as impactful as maybe I thought it was.
Yeah. Don't roadblock yourself. Cool. Yep. Thank you for that. Yep. Let's go back a little in time here and get a personal snapshot of Tara. I'd like to understand a little bit of what your childhood was like and how that fast forward impacted your career. And I know that's had many stages too, but would love your view on that.
Yeah. So this is fascinating. So my father, both of my parents were in, professional industries. My father was a doctor. My mother was a stay-at-home mom for a season, but also a teacher. But what they both really modeled in my childhood was that, kind of the saying is words matter. But my father really was the super relational. They were both relational, but my father, being a pediatrician, he would always tell me, Tara, your real client, he wouldn't say it in these words, but essentially your real client is the mom, is the dad, is the parent, not necessarily the child. Like, he's like, that's who I'm really treating half the time, is the parent. And in those relationships that he built with them, I just saw how much he cared, how much when he was talking to a worried parent, talking somebody after hours, that there was so much care and concern to get to the root issue, of course, of whatever was going on with their child at that point. But it was so much about, hey, mom, hey, dad, they're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. This is how we treat it. Tell me about your concern, just listening. And so I learned so much empathy and compassion from him, in the sense of, hey, what you think is the real problem, AKA, this kid is sick or not feeling well, is actually, there are other issues that you have to potentially get with people, to kind of diagnose and to treat them along the way. So I learned a lot about that I'll talk about in a minute, that I brought into my career. But with my mom, she was an English teacher, go figure, But it's really funny because even though she taught me everything about grammar and proper use of words, where she really shined, again, was using those words to encourage me constantly at home. I had an older brother and an older sister. And, sometimes you feel as the youngest, you get lost a little bit in their light, but she just had such a knack of seeing me as an individual and then pulling out the best in me, really using her words and using her encouragement. Now, they were human, of course, not perfect humans by any means, but as I look at my career, and specifically the way my childhood and their words, there was a lot of brokenness. I come from a divorced home, so again, there was a lot of imperfection. But one thing that really stuck with me through both of my parents was words matter, and how you treat other people, good or bad, is going to matter. It affects not only how you're feeling at the time, but it affects them, and that you can use your words and your expertise to talk people off a ledge, in my case, my dad and parents, but you can also use them to build people up. And so I really focused in on that and was able to understand that, hey, everything in life we do really revolves around how we communicate with each other, the words that we use, the words we don't use, specific ways you can learn how to speak with people and understand their language as a way to communicate, so my dad wasn't just speaking in terms of, doctor textbook terms. He was like, hey, let's use common language, to connect with these parents, to really get with the issue. And then my mom, it was, hey, I know all this technical language. She would always joke with me. I would say, Mom, I'm done. And she'd be like, no, Tara, steak is done. You are finished. And I'm like, what? And it would just always make me laugh. But then I find myself now like, oh my gosh, she just really cared about how you use words. And even though that, honestly, I became an editor and all these other things, it really shaped how, almost laughable I am with like being too serious with things, that I just kind of laugh. I think it's, if that bars you from being the real you, that you get stuck on, oh my gosh, did I use a preposition at the end of the sentence? Or did I start with, and or but or all that? Then I think that those things, as long as they're reflective of the real you, that you can use those to your advantage, but you can also know when to disregard rules and just be yourself. So that's how my parents really shaped the career path that I chose. But, having kind of a broken childhood, I think that really affected the empathetic nature I have for just making sure everybody that I meet feels included in my words and how I connect with them.
Makes a lot of sense when you described your parents emphasizing that you should use the language of those you're seeking to speak with, right? It makes me think of love languages. And
Yeah.
my wife and I just took that test again, and I've done it with my kids too, to actually learn everyone's love languages. And these change over time too, right? Because certain people want, whether it's words of affirmation, gifts, physical touch. And like when you understand someone, generally how you can engage with them and affect their mood and help them and, for lack of better words, touch them, like touch their soul, right? That's the whole idea. How do you get through to them? Everyone has different channels that work. Some work on some people, some work on other people. And I think the more that you can understand your audience, whether it's a family, a friend, a business customer, it's like we have to understand empathy and practice those skills, whether it's us directly learning about those people or doing research through other channels to know more about the people we're seeking to serve. That's how we affect them, right?
Totally, totally. Because people lean in on, wanting to be understood, wanting to be heard. And the best way you can do that really is a lot of, practical things like mirroring, the way you position yourself face to face. But even, over calls and over Zoom, through your voice, through your tonality, it just says, hey, I'm safe. But also, I hear you. I see you. I know what you're about. I know what you're understanding. And that immediately communicates care and concern in ways that not many other things can. So you can say, I care about you. But if you're leaning in, you're listening, you're looking, you're making that eye contact, you're really showing them. And it almost doesn't matter what you say because they're already like, wow, they really care about me. And if you actually do, which hopefully you do, then it just brings all the more impact into what you're actually saying. And it allows for that connection, which is, to me, the foundation of any kind of relationship, business or otherwise, that you're trying to build.
100%. So how did this understanding and these lessons and values that were instilled in you, how did that then parlay into your career?
Yeah, so it is interesting. I definitely was one of those, kids who kind of grew up like, I'm not sure what I want to do when I grow up. I knew I was great at writing. I knew, that I love to read. I love to do all of that. But I have this other side of me that's like, I'm not just a little, wallflower, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I certainly was very outgoing, very much into sports and athletics. And, so I really thought in college I was going to become a sports journalist. And that's actually what I did right out of college, was worked on the sports news desk and was a copy editor. And for a long time, was the only female, the youngest, all of these, just everything. I don't want to say like cards are stacked against you, but just kind of was really comfortable breaking the norms of things. And I think that that's something that both of my parents really instilled in my childhood, instilled in me, was that confidence of like, you don't have to follow what everyone else is doing. Even if you don't know what you want to do, knowing that, hey, there are some things that I really love. Let me see if I can parlay that into a career. And so that was my role out of college. And I loved it. I still look back as kind of like your first, as boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other, that it's kind of romanticized, but it was my favorite career, I should say, was working in my 20s on the news desk in sports, and then editing reporter stories, working on what stories were going to go where, setting up the newspaper, all of that, and specifically in sports. So that was something that, I absolutely loved. And I knew from an early age that I was going to carry, because my parents really helped me see, hey, it doesn't just matter what you're good at. It doesn't just matter what you're passionate about. But if you can bring those two together, then you're going to be successful almost no matter what you do. So I was able to do that at an early age.
Yeah. And you're going to feel damn good about yourself in the process if you mix those two as well.
Totally.
Isn't that what we all want, is to feel good at the end of every day?
You can follow your passion and find a way that it serves and that you can make a living in it. I know that's not something everybody believes, but I certainly have. And I think you can.
Yeah. At least give it a go. See what you can do with it. Awesome. Thank you for that. So I can see how that unfolded. And just zoom us to today. You started with the sports journalism. What are you doing now?
So now it's so much fun. I feel like it's full circle. I've done a bunch of things in between, but now I am specifically working with founders, CEOs, executives as their personal ghostwriter. So essentially, I like to call it, I'm an actor with words. I'm not trying to be myself when I write with them, and that's what I really say. I don't necessarily always say I write for them. I really say I write with them, because I think a lot of times people think, oh, a ghostwriter, the person just goes away and gives me kind of some bullet points and scripts, and I just go from there. But it's actually a very, very relational, high touch service where I sit with my clients and essentially get in their head and become kind of their therapist, their chief of staff, all of these roles in one, but with the goal to truly pull out what they think about very specific topics and issues in a way to bring their presence onto LinkedIn that actually meets goals that they have that they may not even know that they have. So it's a very strategic process of both working with a content strategy based on their goals, what they want to do, and then working with them to actually produce and create the content that will hopefully lead them to those goals over the next, several months as they build a presence on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And then those words, often written as a starting point, can be conveyed in so many other things, in product features and marketing. It's the essence, right? And I love the theme that's happening on LinkedIn right now with a lot of creators, which is writing good words, writing words well. I'm not even saying this correctly. Your mom would probably get very upset at me. Writing well-written words, impactful words are the core of making any difference you seek to make, whether it's like setting rules for your family on how we're going to be a good family, or how do you create a business, or how do you make sure that you're serving others. It's like those are the core, the absolute nucleus of making any change happen is well-written words, because we have to extract out of our monkey mind all the chaos that's happening. And we do that through the process of writing. That's how we get to fine-tuned thoughts. That's where ideas become real, and then they become actionable.
Absolutely. And this is the crazy thing. A lot of people think there's so many misconceptions about ghostwriting that I'm like, gosh, I need to do like my own series of posts on it. But a lot of people think, okay, well, they come to you because they're not great writers or they're not really great communicators. And I'm actually like, I do have clients that I coach that maybe, aren't the best, but 99% of the clients I work with are incredible communicators. In fact, they wouldn't be in their positions to, do what they get to do day in and day out if they weren't great. What I find is they can easily tell their story internally with people who are bought in, already, whether that's their team, employees, peers even, but going out into kind of the wide world, specifically on LinkedIn, can be intimidating even for, the biggest voices that you see. And so sometimes just having another person sit there and craft their words, guide those conversations, give them someone to just ping thoughts off of, but honestly, take their wide vision and then just reduce it down to bite-sized pieces is like what they will pay me, end over end for, even if they're like, can I just talk to you for an hour a month and just help clarify my strategy of what I'm going to post and when? And then within a few months, I'm almost like, okay, you're ready. I almost fire myself of like, you've got this. I'm happy to keep doing it for you. But my goal is almost to work my way out of a job because they become so clear in where they're going, what they're thinking, what they're doing, that I feel like I have finally done my job well.
Yeah, spot on. Something I've heard you say, I think on another podcast, is that everyone is a ghostwriter. Can you elaborate on that?
Again, this is something I should probably do a whole series on. So when you think about ghostwriting, when most people think about ghostwriting, again, they think, okay, it's just, so-and-so's got a very public figure, public face, they've got a voice. And then it's just somebody comes in and does all the writing for them. And it's almost like you feel like it's like that you're just like a dictator, or dictating things at a desk and you're just writing for them. Well, what they don't realize a lot of times is that is essentially the same process that I go through with my clients is what I go through with myself and what a lot of people go through, which is, hey, I need to have a clarifying strategy. I can literally wake up any day and write about 100 things. I mean, most people say or think that they can't write because they don't have anything to say. Well, I have found that the opposite is true. The problem is we have too much to say almost. That if we don't have a clear strategy on what we actually want to accomplish, who we want to speak to, where we want to go, and this does not have to be, oh gosh, I want to launch a course in 6 months and I've got it does not need to be something that specific. And for most of us, it's not. But even if it's, hey, here's who I can help. Here's something that maybe somebody can hire me to do or potentially want me to do or want me to advise them to do. And then you can take that further as in like, okay, here's something someone actually can pay me to do, hopefully that I'm not good at it or I'm that experienced in it. And once you have those narrowed down, it's just getting up and making sure, hey, is what I'm saying aligned in this direction? Does this sound like me? Does this feel like me? Because we've talked about like when I even write stuff and I'm like, ugh, this does not connect with me. What am I saying? And then I go back and I'm like, okay, let me think about this a little deeper. Let me ask myself some questions. Let me clarify my point. I'm being my own ghostwriter. I'm being my own editor. I'm doing all the things that I actually do with my clients, but now I'm doing it with myself. And yes, I can write in my own voice, obviously, but I found it is so easy for me then to start assuming other voices and then just taking those and making sure, okay, would client XYZ say it like this? But the point's the same and the process is almost the same. The hard part, the tricky part is just getting in someone else's voice. But when you think about yourself as a ghostwriter and trying to get in your own head and dig deep and do all of those things, I've come to find we're all ghostwriters. We're all trying to do something and even, get to a part of us that requires a lot of digging and that maybe isn't as easy on the surface.
It's so powerful. I come from 15 years in management consulting, and the whole thing is basically you're outward focused on delivering for clients like large Fortune 500 companies. You're delivering massive change projects, IT projects, whatever they are. And you're so focused on them and being skilled in ways that serves them. And being so outwardly focused, I remember being this way. I lacked any sort of inner knowledge. My self-awareness was very minuscule. Looking in retrospect now, it was very minuscule. It's almost a little bit ashamed of it, but I didn't know myself. And therefore I couldn't write as myself because I didn't know who that was. Mm-hmm. But it's about 5 years ago, Tara, where I committed to this idea of, I didn't use the term at the time, but building my personal brand because I set up my blog, my own domain and all this. And I was like, I got to get stuff out. And at first it sounded like the stuff I was delivering for clients. It was like corporate speak. Yeah. And over time, it's like, oh, it got a little bit more human, a little more interesting. And now where I am today, I'm so proud of the transformation I've gone through, but it took years of iteration and figuring out what my voice was. And everyone says, be authentic. And you're like, what the hell does that even mean? But I think the process of ghostwriting, adopting that, being yourself, putting words out into the world, even if it's in a journal, is that process by which you find yourself. And then you ask yourself, where do I put this? Who needs to hear it? If not just me or a family member, is there a public audience that needs to hear it? And that makes me think about personal branding, right? You've talked about this a lot. We talk about words at the core. If you develop the process to get your words true and honest and meaningful, it gives us an opportunity to deliver value through a personal brand. But I have my take on that. I would love yours. How should we think about personal brand, which to many people is kind of cringe, like, ugh, I don't want a brand. That's for Instagram influencers. But how would you say we need to think about personal brand going forward?
Well, I love that you brought in the other buzzword that people hate, which is influencer. And it's so funny. Not everybody hates it, but when we're specifically talking about the LinkedIn world, it is so different. I mean, I've built community. I built a community on Facebook before. I've done this without knowing I was doing this for years, and a lot of people have. But my biggest point that I always tell everybody is you have a personal brand, whether you know it or not. You have a brand with your friends. You have a brand with your family. You have a brand with your coworker. You have a brand with your favorite, checkout person at the grocery store. No matter where you go, you are constantly engaging, interacting, bringing yourself, and other people are forming opinions about you, good or bad, like it or not. It just is, and so it's kind of that, like, your opinion of me is none of my business. Essentially, your personal brand is none of my business when it's other people. But what we do, or what I do, is say, okay, now it's time to make it your business. You're going to have a brand anyway. You may as well shape it well. Now, this is not, okay, let's just go and make up someone that we're not, be somebody that we don't want to be. All of these things where I think it gets a bad rap of, let's basically be the online version of a heavily filtered, Instagram influencer on a yacht, but none of that speaks true. Now, when you do it well and you do it right, yes, you are positioning, because again, you can wake up and you can write about absolutely anything in the world, but where you can really make sure, hey, does this brand, does this person that I'm presenting to the world line up to what I really feel, who I really am, what I think. And I always say the three pillars, my kind of equation for building a personal brand or creating content or putting yourself out there, whatever you want to call it, it all points to the same. I think having a personal brand means that you've put some strategy behind it, you've put some thought behind it, but it's your chance to showcase what you think, how you think, and then why you think that. And then when you put those three things together and they are truly genuine to what you think, how you think, and why you're thinking it today, mind you, it can change and that's okay. And those things start to become consistent over time where people can pull up a name and immediately form an opinion, again, good or bad. That's not in there, but you've done the work to say, okay, this is what Tara thinks. Or if I put out a subject, I'm going to probably know what Tara thinks, how she's thinking about it, and why she thinks it that way. And when somebody else can answer those questions that probably align very close to how you would define it, then I say you've really nailed at building a true, authentic personal brand. So that hopefully makes it a little more attainable, a little less buzzwordy, because it really is about you just putting your actual real thoughts out into the world consistently enough to where I don't want to say they're predictable, but almost, and so the first thing somebody comes up with, and then of course, under certain subjects that you actually have expertise and experience in, and when all of that aligns under this umbrella of personal brand, then call it whatever you want, at that point, because now you have a reputable online presence where you can back it up with actions, but also you're moving it forward with words.
It's an asset, right? When you treat it as such. And it's also a means to serve others. If you care, everyone says, I want to make an impact. I want to do good in this world. Like, okay, think about your personal brand as an asset by which to do that. Because if more eyeballs and ears are paying attention to you, then you can actually earn the right to serve them. So look at it that way, right? And it's just, and you're going to feel good. You're going to feel like you're in your zone of genius. Your purpose is right. I actually just heard a couple of weeks ago this great way of thinking of personal brand, which is like, it's especially in 2022, it's just the digital version of your reputation. That's all it is. And if you get intentional with it, it's extremely powerful. I mean, think about it. If you're a provider for your family, so a lot of the audience members that are listening right now, Tara, they're in the 9 to 5. They might be, 10, 15 years into their career. They've been crushing it. Maybe they're a little exhausted. But they're also wanting to get to things like financial independence, more time freedom, things like this. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you use a personal brand to your advantage? Why wouldn't you put content ideas, maybe even spin up products on the side that can help others through your personal brand? You have so many gifts locked up inside. And if you're working just for an employer, they're going to only ask of you to unleash a small fraction of your gifts. It's the nature of your role. You can only do so much. You have so much more to offer rather than just let it stay dormant inside of you. Think of creating a personal brand, and it can be LinkedIn. It can be other ways. It doesn't even have to be social, frankly, but how are you going to get it to the world so that it can make a difference? And in return, bring good things for you and your family. And there's just a lot of goodness when you embrace it with the right attitude.
100%. I've lived this out. I mean, this is my journey. I was working for a company and thankfully our CEO is the one who led the way. And I had no idea. Again, my account was dormant for 13 years. And I started to see the relationships he was building, the things he was learning. This was huge for me. And coming on to specifically looking at LinkedIn and how much I learned. I called it my mastermind in my pocket because at that time I was building a sales development team. I was learning everything from scratch. And I just came on and I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these people with personal brands using their brilliance and expertise to impact me. And it literally changed my life to where I was like, wait a minute, I can do this too. Not in like a, I'm so great kind of way, but like, yes, like I want to have that kind of impact on someone else that these amazing creators have had on me. And all they are doing is sharing what they know, what they go through. It does not have to be this huge, scary, daunting task, of I've got to be the perfect this, or I've got to have the brand before I can claim the brand. And I'm like, no, this is how you claim it. It's like trying to go to the gym, waiting to go to the gym until you're fit. And I'm like, no, that's how we all see it. It's not that. You have got to build it if you want to build it. And then I was able to, when my season of life changed and a lot of things hit for me, and I was like, you know what, the 9 to 5 is not working for my season right now. Loved it. It was absolutely served its purpose in that season, many seasons, many a year. But 2 years ago almost, that's when I was like, it's time for me to step on my own. And the only reason I was truly able to do that as successfully as I was in the last couple of years was having my name out there, was having opportunity out there, and having already built up some people who had helped me up until then, and I was able to help them and have those relationships that really moved the opportunity for me to say, you know what, in this season, I'm gonna do my thing on my time, and it absolutely would not have been possible had I not built that brand or that presence ahead of time.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the seasons, right? And thinking about your seasons in life and how your career aligns to that. And we have to just think about how we're adapting, we're ebbing and flowing. And we can't just always be pedal to the metal, say in a professional track, because that's going to come at great costs. You've talked before where like you have certain glass balls and rubber balls, and you can't allow the glass balls to fall, right? Like you can't lose relationships with your family. Mm-hmm. So we always have to adapt to the seasons, know what season you're in, adapt, realizing that this whole thing called life is a journey, and it's going to have different looks and feels over time. And it can happen. You can be on a more relaxed, quiet part of your life, even earlier in life, and then go harder later. And it's totally acceptable. And it's everyone's personal circumstances that dictates this. So I've loved how you've brought that to life for us. You've talked about it a lot. I'll actually put some in the show notes on how you've talked about this. But I'd love your perspective in particular on this. People that listen to this show, they're those typical high achievers, Tara. They're those people that have probably been going 10, 15 years on a given path, climbing the ladder, and then they start to feel something's off. There's a pebble in their shoe. They're like, what the hell's going on? I don't know what it is. Yet they feel kind of this addiction to worker mode. Mm-hmm. They know that's all they know. That's where their self-worth is tied up. They don't understand this concept of seasonality. What advice would you give them?
Oh gosh. Number one, pay attention to that dang pebble, because it is telling you something, because if not, you're going to get up and you're not going to be able to go, and you're going to have a bum foot, and things will get worse. I have been a high achiever my entire life, and I have looked outward constantly to say, you know what, I need this approval. I need this person's approval. I need this title. I need this, this achievement to really make everything that I've done until now worthwhile. And what I think we don't realize is we have to be proud of ourselves first. And when you move into something that actually aligns, again, with the things that you really love, the reason that you even know a pebble exists is because it's bothering you. The reason why something maybe isn't lining up when you're climbing this corporate ladder, or you're doing something that maybe you always thought you wanted to do, but now you're in the role and you realized, oh my God, this is more than I bit off more than I can chew, or I may be achieving these external standards or successes, but internally I'm miserable, so I'm speaking to those people, and I know you are too, where there's already something bothering you. There's already something that is more. And it's so easy to ignore it because you have that very comfortable, safe paycheck or potential this or that you've been promised. But the thing that I've realized with high achievers is the farther we disconnect from ourself, as in like doing those deep dives of understanding what really makes us tick, what really makes us happy, what really satisfies that kind of more monster, I always call it, within that more, like I've got to have more, is when you're doing something that is truly aligned with your core values, so that for me, the question isn't, well, just, jump off the hamster wheel and, go to Tahiti for 6 months and sip, deplete yourself. It's not that kind of rest. It's an active rest that actually leads you, crazy enough, to achieve more, because what you're now achieving is going to satisfy a deeper part of you, because you are aligned with your purpose, you're aligned with the passion, and you've got that dang nagging pebble out of your foot, and you're so joyous in whatever you decide to do. in the next season, whether that's work for yourself, maybe it's take a demotion. Oh my gosh, do something that frees up more time that you can pursue maybe some other things that you've always wanted to do, or coach, your son's team or your daughter's, be her, go to her recitals or whatever it is that you find that you now are achieving in the areas that matter, that really, really matter. And you have so much more passion and energy that you can go still do the work thing. Because people like us still got to work. I'm like, I don't know if I will ever retire. Like, they're going to have to like put me in a corner somewhere to make me not want to, do these kind of things that I love doing. But now they're so much more aligned that I'm actually working, fewer hours, but I'm working different. And I'm now, seeing things that I'm doing with my kids is actually filling that achievement bucket that I'm so proud of myself, that I feel like I am more successful at 42, working fewer hours than I was in my 30s, just, on that hamster wheel.
Yeah. It's the essence of slow down to speed up. And everyone needs to figure out what that version looks like for them and their life circumstances. But when you have that pebble in your shoe and something's wrong, and it's either your brain, your heart, or your gut is speaking to you, listen, because those are sensors that something needs to change, and maybe a different thing in life needs your attention for some period of time. And you need to give it attention because it's going to keep nagging at you if you don't. And when you give it attention, whether it's your own health or whether it's a family member or being something for your community, then you're all the more able to actually crush it in the thing you were doing prior.
Totally. Yeah. Or a brand new thing altogether.
Yeah. Pivot. Here we go. Wonderful. Tara, do you mind if we flip to some rapid fires?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh gosh, the best piece of advice I've ever received. Honestly, this is actually speaking to kind of the solopreneur people, or the people who are going, is make sure that you don't trade one crazy for 10 crazies. So that is easily, as I was building my business and moving into working for myself, the best piece of advice is to not trade one crazy for 10 crazies.
Can you give us an example on how that might look?
Oh gosh. So when it comes to having, let's just say, high maintenance clients. So you think by, okay, I'm leaving this one crazy thing, this one job, or this one world behind, that all of a sudden I'm going to have no crazy in my life. I'm going to have no, well, the thing is that what you want to do is that everything that you're pointing to now really points back to the fact that you wanted to be done with the crazy. And so it's easy to bring on a bunch of other crazy, to stop spinning one plate and then maybe pick up, you were spinning one huge plate, so to speak. And then now you're spinning one little plate. Well, let me add another little plate. And before long, you may not have one huge plate. Now you've got a bunch of 10 little plates, and they're going to drive you 10 times crazier. So make sure that you, of course, put your work life accordingly, so make those margins, do things like that, that really fill you and that don't absolutely drain you, that you feel like, okay, I just left this one big crazy thing and now I've got a bunch of little crazy things. So take the time, make sure that you're in a moderate pace of life, because that's probably why you left, or what you're seeking to begin with.
Yeah. Really comes down to self-awareness and knowing what season you're in.
Totally.
On the flip side, what's the worst piece of advice you've ever heard?
Oh gosh, I think that this comes back to any time that you're, public speaking, is that this is one of those things when you go out that you don't want to just go out and make sure that you're trying to speak to everyone all the time. So this is something, whether that goes to content, it goes to marketing, it goes to anything that you're doing for yourself. Find your one person that you're speaking to, and then do one to many instead of, do many to one instead of one to many. So, and what that does in your world is that it really clarifies your message as you go. So instead of, again, trying, and you hear this a lot of times, like, don't try to be everything to everyone. It's so true. Find that one person. And then once you have found that one person, that your message resonates, that your company, that your skill set, anything resonates, just stay there. Don't try to scale it to make sure that you've covered everyone. Stick to that one person, stick to that one client, that one thing that you love and that you love doing. And instead, instead of trying to blow things, up for everybody, just stay small, stick to the one. Don't try to be everyone to everything to everyone.
I can see you're dancing around that much hated word niche. I love it. But it's like the idea of owning this when you know intimately so much someone, or at least the idea of someone, an avatar so well, and you can get in their heads, like, that is the greatest unlock for what you're trying to do. You get one-to-one there, and then you can actually multiply it there. But that takes a lot of work to get to that point.
It does. It does. And people say, don't do that. And just to be everything, especially at first. And I'm like, you are going to burn yourself out, because what's going to happen is you're going to start to second guess yourself, your passions, your heart, because then you're going to get too much feedback from too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah. You have to start so small and then earn the right to go more broad as you go. It's the only way it works. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Tara, if you could invent one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. It sounds so cheesy, but truly be kind. Like, be kind people. Let me tell you, nothing has served me more in my career than being somebody that people want to work with. And it sounds so like prideful and this is all about me, but it's not, because think about the people that you love working with. They don't think about themselves. They are such givers, and they are such, honestly, firm, direct, warm, but kind people. And kindness is not weakness. So if I could just say, everybody, let's just put, and this is more, and it's deeper than just put other people first or things like that. It's truly a self-awareness of, hey, my words can build other people up, or they can tear other people down. And ultimately, you can want to end at the same goal. I absolutely want to, when I was leading a team, I want to motivate people and I want to move them fast. But I can do that by encouraging, motivating, speaking their language, or I can just tear them down and just, basically like, that's it, or you're fired, or things like that. You can get to the same goal, and you can be a kind human being in doing it. And I'm telling you, everything will work out better for everyone if you do.
Game changer. A few things to wrap us up, Tara. What does uncaged mean to you?
Ooh, I love that idea. Honestly, it feels very untethered, so nobody likes being tied down to something. Nobody likes being stuck. And the worst part of my career was anytime I felt that I was out of options. And so I think being uncaged means you are now free to explore options and opportunity. And nothing to me feels more freeing than having the opportunity to say yes, but also having the opportunity to say no, and it being your choice. So truly uncaged, I think, really boils down to having opportunity and options, and being able to say yes or no to the things you want to do.
Let's just keep working to that state. So well said. Tara, where can people connect with you online, and how can you help them?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Tara Horstmeyer. I think I'm the only one. And you can find me online at Happy Words or happywordsell.com. And I can help people through ghostwriting, through content consulting and coaching, as well as workshops to help you understand how to leverage LinkedIn and leverage your content to the best that you can do. So, and with some help.
Sweet, dude. Mm-hmm. LinkedIn's powerful. It's got crazy organic reach and lots of buyers out there. So if you want to make a difference, you want to start a business, go out there.
Awesome. Yes.
Tara, any closing message you'd want to leave with the audience today?
No, just thanks for having me. And your words matter. So use them to build others up. And the crazy thing is they'll use theirs to build you up right alongside you.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for the time today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll chat soon later.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, Matt here. Thanks for listening to Uncage Yourself. For show notes and more content like this, head over to uncageyourself.fm. And if you liked what you heard, I'd appreciate you leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Until next time, be well, my friend.